A man received a strange assignment. Every day he had to suspend landmines deep within a 2,600 feet deep canyon. A thick white mist blanketed the middle of the gorge, and beneath that veil, something mysterious and unfathomable seemed to lurk. On the other side, a female assassin was even more formidable. She had been lying in ambush inside a mountain cave for a full month. At last, a private jet descended slowly. Her long-awaited target had finally appeared. However, the distance between them was a staggering 6,500 feet, and she had only one chance to take the shot. She pulled the trigger, and the target's body jerked backward. She had successfully completed her mission. Carefully, she gathered the spent shell casing and handed it to her father. Yet, despite her precision, Drace's operation had been captured by a police drone. Her father advised her to find a place to hide for a year. The man in the canyon placing landmines was named Levi, a retired Marine Corps sniper who had been recalled back into service. His superior asked him 3 questions. How is your health? Are you currently single? If you were to die, would anyone miss you? Levi answered that he was alone and had no friends. His superior seemed to find this satisfactory. Before Levi could ask why he had been called back, he suddenly passed out. When he regained consciousness, soldiers had taken all of his electronic devices and informed him that his superior had assigned him a task to serve as a guard at the western watchtower of the canyon. If he held the position for a year, he could return and receive a generous reward of $10 million. Levi, who was in urgent need of money to maintain his lifestyle, didn't mind being knocked out. At that moment, a helicopter arrived at the restricted airspace. He would need to parachute down, then climb a steep vertical cliff and walk 25 miles before reaching the canyon. Official records listed his kill count at 218 precise shots, but in reality, the number exceeded 300. To the military, he was undoubtedly one of their best soldiers, so climbing mountains and overcoming obstacles were nothing he couldn't handle. The canyon was shrouded in thick, white mist, as if deliberately concealing something. Before Levi could collect his thoughts, a soldier arrived to hand over the task and led him up to the western watchtower. The tower stood at least 320 feet above the ground, seemingly designed to guard against something. However, everything appeared calm, and Levi had no idea what exactly he was meant to protect. The soldier who briefed him explained that it wasn't about guarding in the traditional sense, but preventing the hollow men in the canyon from escaping. Levi was puzzled. What were these hollow men? The soldier himself had never seen them, only heard about them from the previous guard on duty. The canyon had to be inspected daily to ensure that the artillery and explosives were intact. This was a matter of life and death. The Big Ears device, which jammed satellites, also had to be checked regularly to prevent the canyon from being detected by overhead satellites. Every 30th of the month, a report about the canyon's current condition had to be sent to the Marine Corps. The soldier who had been guarding the site for a year was now being replaced, and a helicopter arrived to take him away. However, after revealing his identity, the soldier was immediately executed. The clear intention was to prevent the canyon's secrets from being exposed. Levi knew nothing of this, but he had one question in his mind. Why not just use missiles to destroy the canyon? Wouldn't that resolve the problem once and for all? Clearly, something enormous and hidden was at play here. On both sides of the canyon stood watchtowers. Levi manned the western tower, while Drace guarded the eastern one. Drace, having accepted the organization's arrangement to evade police pursuit, became one of the canyon's sentinels. Before arriving at the canyon, both Levi and Drace had their electronic devices confiscated, and they were strictly prohibited from communicating with each other. Life became incredibly dull and monotonous. Driven by curiosity, Levi used his binoculars to observe the situation on the opposite side, only to spot the stunning figure of Drace, which instantly stirred his emotions. That night, he even secretly watched her silhouette. As a seasoned assassin, Drace quickly realized she was being watched, so she extinguished her candle, leaving Levi with an even greater sense of longing and frustration. How could they communicate across the canyon? On Drace's birthday, she was longing to speak with someone, so she fired a shot to grab attention. Through his binoculars, Levi saw her appear to ask for his name, and thus, the two began exchanging words, one sentence at a time. However, at that moment, Drace looked toward the western watchtower, her expression suddenly changing. She signaled for Levi to look down. They spotted a strange figure, covered in vines, with ragged clothing, looking like a hybrid of plant and human. The creature was crawling on all fours, already beneath the protective net, and it was clear it was about to climb up. Without hesitation, Levi fired, hitting a bomb hanging above the canyon. The explosion burst in the pitch-black night, but these strange creatures were only the tip of the iceberg. More of them quickly emerged. Levi and Drasa coordinated their fire, unleashing a furious barrage toward the creatures on the opposite side. After an intense exchange of gunfire, the canyon seemed to return to an eerie calm. However, at that moment, Drasa heard the sound of something crawling. She quietly stepped back, and suddenly, one of the creatures climbed up. Without hesitation, Drasa fired 7 or 8 shots, then kicked the creature back down. Unfortunately, it collided with a bomb, setting it off. Drasa was hit by shrapnel and fell to the ground, injured. At that moment, more of the creatures were rapidly closing in on her. Levi immediately grabbed the heavy machine gun and began spraying bullets in all directions. Countless rounds streaked through the air like meteors, knocking the creatures down one by one. He didn't forget to sweep for any creatures approaching his side either. Yet, despite the barrage, the creatures kept crawling up, wave after wave. Drasa gritted her teeth, enduring the pain from her wounds, and picked up the heavy machine gun to assist Levi in the barrage. Suddenly, one of the creatures crossed a red laser line, causing the automatic turrets on both sides of the canyon to immediately lock onto the target and launch a more intense attack. From above, the shells fired like beams of light, relentlessly targeting the creature. After a few minutes, the creature was finally driven back. Exhausted, Drasa sat down to rest, but a sense of exhilaration filled her. She wrote on a piece of cardboard to tell Levi that this was the most exciting birthday she had ever had. Levi manned his gun, guarding her the entire night, only lowering his vigilance when dawn broke. From the battle the previous night, it was clear that the creatures preferred nighttime ambushes. They could even avoid numerous obstacles and successfully climb the watchtower, indicating they were not mere monsters, but a highly intelligent humanoid species. But why were they hiding in the canyon? What exactly were they? While Levi was replenishing bombs on the cliff, he saw a drone flying up from the bottom of the canyon. However, the turrets didn't open fire, which suggested it was likely a reconnaissance mission by the Marine Corps. He didn't give it much thought. As time passed, Levi and Drasa spent time together playing chess and drumming. During their time together, Levi realized he had fallen in love with Drasa. He took a rocket, removed the explosive material, then tied it with a cable, and shot it toward the base of the eastern watchtower. Afterward, he slid down the rope to meet her. When they reunited, a natural intimacy between them emerged. It was Valentine's Day, and Drasa, gazing at the Orion constellation in the sky, felt a pang of sadness as she realized her father had passed away. However, she was comforted by Levi's presence, spending the long night together with him. The next morning, Levi was preparing to return for his inspection duties. Just as he was about to reach the shore, disaster struck. The Hollow Men launched another attack. The turrets blasted them all away, but in the process the ropes were severed, and Levi accidentally fell into the canyon. Drasa immediately strapped on a parachute and leaped after him. The surrounding white mist quickly turned yellow, as if entering an entirely different world. She deployed her parachute just in time, but was unexpectedly swept into a rapid current. The parachute got caught on some rocks, and Drasa was relentlessly tossed by the water. She quickly cut the straps and let the current carry her downstream. Eventually, she managed to grab hold of a tree trunk, barely saving her life. Levi, however, wasn't as lucky. He was caught in the branches of a tree, unconscious. As he hung there, a long, sinister worm slowly slithered toward him. Levi, once a Special Forces operative, was instantly triggered by the danger signal. He awoke to see this horrifying sight. Levi was in danger. He immediately fired, cutting the parachute's cords, but then fell into a puddle of viscous, venom-like slime that quickly trapped him. At that moment, a ring of sharp spikes suddenly emerged around him, resembling a massive mouth intent on devouring him. Just as he was about to meet his end, Drasa, who had heard the gunshots, arrived in the nick of time. She fired several shots, destroying the spikes and saving Levi. The two finally reunited, and the priority now was to get out of this perilous place as quickly as possible. But suddenly, a monstrous roar echoed, putting them back in a dangerous situation. The next moment, a hollow man covered in branches rode toward them on a tree horse made of wood. It wielded a tree whip and charged at them, launching an attack. The two turned and ran, but the tree horse chased them down quickly. The hollow man leapt forward and tackled Drasa, attempting to swallow her whole. Drasa swiftly drew the dagger from her leg and drove it into the hollow man's major artery. She then rolled over, taking control of the situation, and shot the hollow man dead. However, another hollow man rushed in from the side, and the tree horse reared up, pressing down on Levi with its heavy hooves, even knocking the gun from his hands. Levi quickly drew a small handgun and shot the tree horse until it was riddled with holes. The final shot hit the hollow man's head, killing it. After the battle, Levi noticed that the Hollow Man was wearing military clothing from the 1940s. From the 1940s to 2025, there was a gap of 85 years. Whether human or monster, by all logic, they should not exist in this world today. What creatures were hiding in the canyon? The two Hollow Men from earlier had worked together seamlessly, covering for each other. This was clearly a military tactic. Levi had a bold hypothesis in his mind. These Hollow Men could very well be soldiers from the 1940s, but how could that be possible? Unless they had somehow experienced some form of time travel. In order to uncover the truth, they pressed on. Soon, they reached a graveyard, and the scene before them was one of decay. There were no tombstones, but instead, a group of people had fused with the trees. Judging by their expressions and movements, it was clear that these people did not want to merge with the massive trees, but were helpless to avoid this fate. Their faces twisted in agony and despair. To Levi's horror, the spikes that had surrounded him earlier were actually their ribs. He could almost see the horrific image of humanity's desperate struggle in those agonized expressions. The human genes had merged with those of the giant trees, transforming them into the Hollow Men. In their desperation to return to their original forms, the Hollow Men sought to inhabit the bodies of the living. But what had caused all of this to happen? The two ventured through a passageway beneath their feet and arrived in front of a building. The structure was wrapped in tree branches, and it appeared to have undergone some kind of mutation. The ground was cracked, as if it had endured an immense earthquake. Just as they were about to enter the building, the Hollow Men suddenly emitted strange calls, likely alerting them to Levi and Drassa's presence. They quickly took refuge in a nearby church, where they discovered numerous human corpses. Levi found a pair of rings and picked them up. He sniffed them, and soon realized that the people had died from hydrogenation poisoning. Drassa immediately speculated that these people had chosen to end their own lives, as something truly horrifying had transpired here. The canyon was home to ferocious creatures. Suddenly, Drassa heard a noise, and a giant spider dropped from the sky, followed by a swarm of spiders rushing at them from all directions. These creatures appeared to be hybrids of humans and animals. The two immediately started attacking, but when the Hollow Men heard the gunshots, they rushed in to suppress them. Levi broke free with an elbow strike and helped Drassa by shooting a Hollow Man in the head. Drassa seized the opportunity to counterattack. The scene quickly descended into chaos as the Hollow Men and spiders were not easily killed by bullets. Drassa blew open an escape route, and the two ran for a distance. However, the sounds of howling continued to echo around them. They quickly took refuge behind the canyon's walls. To prepare for any unexpected situations, Drassa placed her bag at the door to seal the entrance and, with Levi, lightened their load for whatever was to come next. The two of them crawled into a tunnel, where the branches had grown so wildly that they seemed to be part of the walls, tightly clinging to the surface. At the end of the tunnel, they found a laboratory filled with various chemical instruments. Human grotesque remains were scattered across the floor, suggesting this was the source of the mutation. Drassa found a videotape labeled with the words, "May God forgive us." She then located a backup generator, restored the power, and used an old projector to play the tape. Soon, a female scientist appeared on the screen. The scientist revealed the truth. During the later stages of World War II, the Allies developed a devastating biochemical missile. Unfortunately, an earthquake severely damaged the facility, causing a leak of the biochemical weapon. The genes of various creatures in the canyon began to merge. Infected individuals would start to show symptoms of mutation within 5 days. Some, unable to bear the pain, chose to end their lives, while those who survived became the Hollow Men. The strange fog in the canyon was likely the toxic gas from the biochemical weapon. However, after the catastrophe, no one came to destroy the canyon. Instead, personnel were sent to guard it, indicating that there were other secrets hidden within the canyon. Levi opened a computer and uncovered the final truth about the incident. It turned out that a genetic company named Black Lake had been using the hybrid genes of the Hollow Men to try and create super soldiers, much like Captain America. Levi and Drassa had both been deceived. They weren't operating under the orders of the Marine Corps or a killer organization, but were actually working for the Black Lake Company. The drone that had been probing the canyon's depths was, in fact, gathering genetic data. But this unethical experiment, which violated human morals, had to be destroyed. Levi found a file called Stray Dog, which revealed that if the canyon was discovered by the outside world, an automatic Stray Dog self-destruct sequence would trigger. This was linked to the device on the lookout tower that resembled a lightning rod. If it exploded, the heat radiation would affect all living creatures within a 2.6-mile radius. They decided to immediately head back to the lookout tower to destroy the Big Ear device, which was blocking satellite signals. However, as soon as they returned to the tunnel entrance, Drasa realized that her backpack was missing. The sounds of howling came from outside. It turned out that the Hollow Man had taken Drasa's backpack. Levi opened the door, and the smoke outside was even thicker than before. The backpack lay just a short distance away. It was clearly a trap. Levi threw a smoke grenade to confuse the Hollow Man's vision, then rushed to grab the backpack with Drasa. But just then, Drasa suddenly felt a tight grip on her ankle. In an instant, she was ensnared by a rope and dragged into the mist. Drasa focused her eyes, only to see another Hollow Man riding a tree horse, pulling her quickly through the mist. Suddenly, a torrential downpour began, as if signaling the end of her life. Drasa was disoriented from being slammed around, while the Hollow Man rode the tree horse, frequently looking back to check if she was dead. Levi chased closely from behind. Drasa tried to use her dagger to cut the rope but found she couldn't muster enough strength. She pulled out her gun and fired repeatedly at the Hollow Man, but the speed at which she was being dragged made it impossible to aim, and she ran out of bullets. Suddenly, there was a loud bang as she was knocked unconscious by a tree branch. Levi followed the trail and arrived at the location of the bioweapon launch pit. Meanwhile, Drasa was hung up, and the Hollow Man pulled a branch from her body, using the pain to bring her out of unconsciousness. Drasa cursed loudly, "Let me go, or I'll chop you up and burn you as firewood." Enraged, the Hollow Man charged forward, attempting to take over her body. Drasa kicked with all her strength, using the momentum to throw off the bindings, then quickly knocked the Hollow Man down. She grabbed an iron spike nearby and stabbed it fiercely into his chest. However, the Hollow Man was hollow inside, and such an attack was ineffective. Drasa was thrown to the ground, but she picked up the iron spike again and severed the creature's snake-like head. Enraged, the Hollow Man brandished a long knife and swung it at Drasa with a fierce strike. Drasa quickly grabbed a burning branch and set the creature's body ablaze, then fired a few more shots. At that moment, Levi appeared, finishing off the Hollow Man for good. Drasa tightly hugged him, and the fear that had gripped her heart slowly began to subside. Levi crouched down to examine the creature, and to his shock he discovered that the Hollow Man was wearing the same name as the first soldier who had been assigned to guard the West Watchtower. Levi had seen this name written on the wall of the bedroom, where many guards had shared their feelings. Furthermore, the term Hollow Man was coined by that very soldier, and now, it seemed, he had become what he had once named. Just as the two of them were about to leave, they saw a group of hollow men in the process of developing. They were tangled together like vines, their limbs interwoven to form a massive canopy, blocking the exit and trapping them within the labyrinthine corridors of the canyon. Levi and Drasa moved carefully through the maze of creatures, trying not to make a sound. One of the hollow men had an enormous belly, blocking much of the passage. Levi held his breath and slowly navigated around it. As they neared the exit, Drasa accidentally stepped on a slimy tendril. Startled, she quickly darted to the side, but a hollow man landed on her shoulder. Drasa moved to avoid it, only to find herself caught in the embrace of another hollow man. It held her tightly, and Levi rushed over, slashing at the tendrils to free her. However, their movements had already alerted the creatures. A ton of creepy tentacles came rushing at them, and the passage started closing in around them. Just as Levi reached the exit, a tendril wrapped around his ankle and pulled him back into the mass of creatures. Desperate, Drasa fired a flare grenade, and a burst of flames erupted, incinerating the monstrous beings and clearing their way to escape. After crawling out of the pit, Levi and Drasa found themselves in a garage filled with old military vehicles, as well as a wheeled climbing machine. They quickly repaired the engine and drove the vehicle to the canyon wall, preparing to scale it. However, the hollow men soon followed. One of them operated the climbing machine, while the other held off the creatures. They took turns switching positions as the machine began to ascend. After a long climb halfway up the wall, Drasa sensed movement below. Looking down, she saw another wave of hollow men scaling the ropes. They quickly reached their position. Drasa braced the accelerator with a toolbox as they stood on the vehicle, fending off the attacking creatures. The hollow men were as relentless as hair tangling on a brush, with wave after wave coming at them. One clever hollow man managed to leap onto the vehicle to ambush Drasa, but she swiftly smashed the window and ended its attack with a game-over shot. Just as Levi was almost knocked off, he decided to go all in. He plunged his knife into a gasoline barrel, dousing the hollow men with fuel. Without hesitation, he lit a flare and threw it down. The flames ignited immediately, engulfing the creatures in fire. The explosion rocked the vehicle, but at last, the hollow men were driven back. Drasa quickly severed the rope, sending the vehicle plummeting. The hollow men were unable to climb back up in time, and the two of them scrambled up the rock wall, narrowly escaping to the lookout tower. Now they faced a new dilemma: whether the toxic gas in the canyon would still affect them, and if so, they knew the inevitable mutation would occur in 5 days. Despite this, they were determined to destroy the place. Drasa fired a grappling hook to send Levi back to the west tower. They then used the ropes to link all the big ears together. Amidst the tension, they took a moment to flirt through their binoculars, making a pact to meet at a designated spot in 5 days if neither had been infected. After setting everything up, Levi suddenly received a call from his superior. The superior mentioned that she had received a signal indicating the canyon's computer systems had been activated and asked Levi if he had been to the canyon. Levi denied it, claiming that he had never been there and knew nothing about it. The superior then speculated that it was the sentry at the east tower who had gone into the canyon and ordered Levi to eliminate the other side. Levi didn't argue but agreed, intending to keep his superior calm while planning to destroy the place. However, what Levi didn't know was that the research facility in the canyon had been equipped with surveillance cameras. Everything that had happened between Levi and Drasa was captured clearly on tape. So, instead of alerting Levi, the superior launched a surprise attack, sending mercenaries to eliminate them immediately. As soon as they spotted the helicopter, Levi and Drasa quickly ran toward the woods. The superior sent drones to attack them, and Levi was knocked down by a tree trunk. The drones quickly closed in, and he immediately pulled out his gun and fired. Drasa managed to divert the drone's attack, causing one to collide with another, resulting in an explosion. They continued running forward, aiming at the big ear device 12,800 feet ahead of them. They fired at it, setting it on fire, and the flames spread along the ropes, destroying all the big ears, thus removing the satellite signal jamming. They quickly ran out of the radiation zone. The wandering dog program, triggered by the canyon's exposed signal, immediately activated the self-destruct sequence. The superior and her team rushed to the helicopter, but it was too late. The bomb exploded suddenly in the middle of the canyon, like a popped balloon. The blast was enough to destroy everything, and the intense heat radiation disabled the helicopter's controls. The aircraft crashed into the mountain wall, killing everyone on board. The shockwave threw Levi into the waterfall. Drasa, watching the scene behind her, knew that Levi's chances were slim, but she still held on to a glimmer of hope. After 5 days, Drasa realized she hadn't been infected and went to the agreed-upon place, waiting for Levi to arrive. However, after waiting for a month, every day from sunrise to sunset, Levi never showed up. Perhaps, deep down, she had already accepted that Levi was gone from this world, and only by waiting could she ease the pain in her heart. Drasa eventually gave up her life as a killer and became a waitress at a restaurant. One day, as she served a plate of lemons to a customer and turned around, she saw a familiar figure, her lover, Levi. This film is called The Gorge, a new release in 2025. We hope you enjoyed it. Looking forward to meeting you at the next crossroads. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.